Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Some Human Pilots Will Transport Anything, written by Firefighter Raven. Talia Layton confidently strode down the corridors of the Burantathi station that orbited Parallaxi 3. She passed through the currently empty hold pens for slaves being transferred to ships that would take them to the various slave markets in several sectors. The Burantathi were one of the biggest suppliers of the slave trade in the galaxy. They were known for their willingness to obtain slaves from any species for a price. Very few humans ever traveled into Burantathi space because of their despisal of slavery and just the sheer distance between them. The station was even further away, being 50 li from the Burantathi border with the Draslians. But there was good money in the trade, and less than reputable humans had hauled unidentified cargoes to various parts of the galaxy. The humans' well-known distaste for slavery and multiple instances of stomping it out where they could meant those few human pilots were in high demand. After all, who would suspect a human owned a ship to carry slaves? Humans were prolific traders, seen in almost all systems in the galaxy, so another human vessel didn't stick out. This lets them move through parts of space that any slaver vessel would stick out like a sore thumb. In most cases, only the biggest organizations could pay their fees and weren't shy about chastising anyone who interfered in their business. Aside from the curiosity of seeing their first human, most individuals did not approach a human first. Best to avoid their employer's attention. So, not even station personnel said a word when she turned down a restricted corridor. It took several minutes to reach the hatchway she wanted. She knocked on the door in a specific pattern, 3 knocks, 2 knocks, and 3 knocks. After a moment, the hatchway slid open, and Talia stepped over the threshold into a large but sparsely furnished room. The older Burantathi stood up from the chair and walked to greet her.
Talia, it is good to see you again. It's been too long,
he exclaimed with a smile on his face. Smiling back, Talia returned the greeting. How are you doing, Burathox? After exchanging pleasantries, Talia got to the point. So what do you have for me? Burathox stood up and led her to another door in the back.
I have 32 slaves that arrived from the station above Arcathi Prime.
Talia let out a slow whistle. That's a long journey. How is the health after a long trip?
As well as could be expected of slaves from the Quicksite mines,
Burathox replied. Well, let's have a good look at them, Talia stated. Burathox led her into the room and towards another door along the back wall. It was disguised by a few boxes and a curtain that easily moved aside at the touch of a button. Opening the door brought out the usual stenches that clung to slaves. Body odor, waste, bad breath from poor diets, and in this case, Quacksite dust. Inside was a small room, dimly lit and crowded with slaves of different species. Each wore a slave collar and chains that could stun a slave if they tried to remove them. Burathox gestured to the slaves.
Come out and line up.
Talia was surprised to find a human male among them. When he noticed her, she saw a look of disgust on his face. Talia walked down the line, expecting each slave from all sides. Once she was finished, she looked at Burathox and said, I'll take them all. She handed a credit chit to Burathox to scan and grabbed the control for the collars. After Burathox gave her back the chit, they exited his room and walked back towards the hallway to the main corridor. Several station guards provided an escort to her ship. As the slaves were being escorted down the corridor, an officious-looking Burantathi came hurrying up, trying to look important, and probably hoping for a bribe. What are you doing? There's been no recent authorization for a transfer of slaves, the Burantathi exclaimed. Talia gave him a withering look and pulled out a metal marker from a jumpsuit. Upon seeing it, the Burantathi stepped back and apologized before scuttling away. She turned back to see the human slave watching her. Talia opened the airlock of her ship and ordered the guards to begin strapping the slaves onto the benches in the cargo hold. But as the human approached the door, she had them put him and the Cortorian in the cockpit, so that she could keep an eye on them, and because the hold was full. After the slaves were loaded and secured to the benches, she walked into the cockpit and took a seat. The human started to say something, but she ordered him to remain quiet while she was undocking from the station. "Wouldn't want me to crash into the station," she joked. With her usual skill, she departed the station with no difficulties. She turned her ship towards the FTL exit point. A spectacular crash between two freighters, as one was coming out of FTL and another just starting to jump to FTL, has led to setting up a separate areas to jump into and out from.
"What kind of human transport slaves, you piece of filth?"
the human male shouted. Talia remained silent until the ship jumped to FTL, and then she turned to her guests. She undid the shackles of the Kotorian and smiled. "Been too long, Fooldy." She clasped hands with it. The Kotorian rubbed his wrists as he replied,
"Talia, good to see you. I almost blew my cover when I saw it was you."
With a smirk, she turned towards the human and said, "Captain Talia Layton, welcome to the Harriet Tubman." She didn't think that he would get the reference, so she explained, "I'm one of several pilots that help smuggle slaves out of the Baron Tathy and other slavers' space." She continued, "And you, my friend, are riding on the Underground Railroad." With a shocked look on his face, he asked,
"Underground Railroad, but we're in space."
Talia gave a slight chuckle. "It's a reference to a group of people that smuggled slaves to freedom in the 19th century Earth." She indicated the Coritian with a nod. "Foldy's been your conductor along the route." Foldy inclined his head. As she reached over and unlocked his chain, he sputtered,
"So, does this mean we're free?"
Talia answered, "As long as we don't get caught." Foldy laughed.
"And anyone that stopped us would soon regret it."
"So when you examined us, that was just to show off for the slaver?" he asked. "Verithox is no slaver. He's one of the stops along the way," she replied. "The examination was to make sure that there would be no issues with fitting in my ship."
"But you paid him." "I saw."
The man continued his questions. "Ah, that wasn't for buying you. It's to help cover bribes and other operating expenses," she answered. "It comes from donations and other revenues."
"I don't understand. Why weren't we told about this?"
he asked. "We found it better to wait until the last leg of the journey before telling them," she continued. "Many species aren't very good at hiding that they're escaping." "We learned the hard way that it's easier to wait," she continued. "So we set up beings like Foldy here, volunteers that work their way into the slave population of a target, quietly organize things and guide the slaves to freedom."
"May I ask what it is that you showed the official that frightened him so much?" the human asked.
Talia pulled out the marker and showed him. He stared curiously at the alien script and the alien skull etched on it. Talia explained, "It's a marker of the Dirkstixen Syndicate, a very powerful criminal organization that dabbles in just about everything but actual slave trading. We do favors for them, smuggling things in and out of various systems. In exchange, they let us use their sigil to scare petty officials. Why don't you go share the good news? Only remove the chains for now, in case we get boarded." Talia smiled at the sound of cheering from the back of her ship. That sound always made the risk feel worth it. End of story. Story number 2. Alien assassins refuse to take on human bodyguards. Written by firefighter Raven. Chazelle walked into the bar and looked around. He spotted the individual he was looking for, alone at a table in the back. He walked towards the table. His antennae drooped in fatigue and frustration. Despite his attempt to act nonchalant, anyone able to read Volzol's body language would see how agitated he was. Without even asking, he pulled out a chair and sat down. The Dugad looked up at the disturbance and relaxed when he saw who it was. Chazelle didn't even notice him putting his blaster back in a holster.
"Chazelle, you know better than to do that. You almost got several new openings in your thorax,"
Carl said. Chazelle visibly paused before apologizing.
"I'm sorry, Carl. I wasn't thinking."
Carl looked longer at the Volzol and perked up.
"What's got you so agitated, Shaz?"
"I've been given a task directly from Prince Samun to find a team of assassins to eliminate a rival family. But I failed to find a guild willing to do the task,"
he complained. He continued.
I was hoping that you could put me in touch with the Crimson Claw Guild.
I can, for a price, but you understand that the Crimson Claw does not come cheap,
Cole answered.
I understand, but they are my last option of the assassin guilds,
Giselle replied. Cole stepped away for a moment and spoke with the young Fildry. He returned to his seat before saying,
"You relay your core request to the guild leader, and if he accepts, we'll have an answer within the hour. Now, have a drink and relax,"
Cole finished. It was less than an hour when the Dugard joined them. He moved with such stealth that Shaz didn't even notice him until he sat down. Without even introducing himself, he spoke.
"You have a contract that you wish to have the Crimson Claw fulfill?"
More than a little intimidated, Shaz stammered, Yes, I do." The assassin spoke again.
"The Crimson Claw does not come cheap, for we always fulfill our contract. Who is the target?"
Shaz sighed with relief.
"The Draken royal family, all of them," he replied.
The assassin nodded and began to speak.
"That will be very expensive to perform."
He paused mid-sentence.
"Did you say the Drakens?"
he asked in an alarmed tone. Shaz nodded an affirmative, and before he could even say a word, the assassin jumped up so fast he knocked over his chair. He stared accusingly at Cole.
"You've never said anything about humans being involved." "You should have mentioned the target when you contacted me,"
he practically shouted, a mixture of anger and fear in his voice.
"You know the Draken's royal family has human bodyguards."
Cole raised his hands in a placating gesture, his voice tinged with fear at the assassin's reaction.
"I didn't know the target before I contacted you, I swear."
Shaz sat speechless, surprised by the assassin's reaction. He wasn't sure, but the way both Dugard furtively scanned the room gave the impression of near terror. The assassin stood up, looked at Shaz, and said firmly,
"We will not take this contract and never contact us again,"
and then hurried off. Cole glared at Shaz.
"Were you trying to get me killed?"
Shaz stumbled over his words.
"No, I didn't realize he would kill you over this meeting."
Cole shook his head.
"Him?"
He nodded towards the departing Dugard.
"No, fool, not him,"
he practically hissed.
"The humans. That explains why none of the other girls will take the job."
Shaz looked perplexed as he said,
"Who or what are humans?"
Cole stared at him in shock.
"Wait, you don't know about humans?"
Shaz shook his head negatively.
"No, should I?"
Cole muttered something under his breath in his language, before switching back to Galactic Basic.
"The average human is very dangerous, but human bodyguards are extremely dangerous. No one takes on human bodyguards and lives to tell the tale. Any attempt is met with swift and unpleasant retaliation."
Cole stared into the Volsol's eyes.
"They will hunt down the assassin, anybody connected to the guild they belong to, anyone involved in facilitating the contract, and those that put the contract out. In case that's not clear, that includes us," Cole continued. "The humans have one of the best intelligence agencies in the galaxy, and the human bodyguard organizations have access to it. They stop many plots before they get to the planning stage."
Cole glanced around before continuing.
"Even success is a failure. There will be nowhere for the assassins to hide. The humans will see it as a stain on their honor, and will do everything needed to restore their honor. There is nowhere to hide from them, and no expiration time for their pursuit," Cole explained. "At least one time it took 5 years to find and eliminate their target."
Giselle was extremely alarmed at all of this.
"What do we do? Are we doomed? Is there any way out?"
Cole replied.
"The best thing to do is forget this assignment completely, and hope that they are merciful."
Shaz bowed in his people's form of thank you and hurried off. A beep from Cole's communicator let him know a new message had been received.
"Information received. Funds to be deposited in your account."
Cole sighed in relief. Becoming an asset was a good way to avoid the human's wrath, Cole thought to himself. The message was unsigned and untraceable. 2 days later, Giselle was on the ship home when he got news that Prince Salmon had been killed in the fall from his balcony and impaled on the fence below. It was shortly after that when he received a short message on an encoded channel, and almost immediately after receiving word of the prince's death. Leniency granted, cost to be discussed at later date. Again unsigned, and untraceable, Shaz sighed in relief, but wondered what it meant by cost. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vitmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.